To understand the soul of the city we now call Oslo, you must first forget that name. In the early years of the 20th century, this place was Kristiania. It was a city of dramatic duality, a capital waking up from a long provincial slumber, shaking off the snow to embrace a modern electric future. If you were to step off a steamer in the harbor in the year 1900, you would not be greeted by the glass and steel of the barcode district, but by the smell of salt, coal smoke, and horse manure, all mingling in the crisp, freezing air. This was the era of the Tiger City, a nickname that promised excitement but also warned of danger. It was a compact metropolis, home to roughly 250,000 souls, squeezed between the deep blue fjord and the dark green forest. The heartbeat of the city was Karl Johans Gate, the grand parade avenue that served as the city's stage. Every day, between 1 and 2 in the afternoon, the bourgeoisie would perform a ritual known as the promenade. Ladies in wide-brimmed hats and heavy skirts navigated the cobblestones, while men in top hats and stiff collars tipped their brims in polite recognition. It was a place to see and be seen, a social theater played out against the backdrop of the royal palace. But there was one figure who commanded more attention than even the royalty. If you stood near the Grand Hotel just before midday, you would see him. A short, stern man with grand white mutton chop whiskers, walking with clockwork precision. This was Henrik Ibsen. By the early 1900s, the great playwright was an aging lion, yet he remained the city's most famous landmark. He would enter the Grand Café, take his reserved seat, and drink his beer. Tourists and locals alike would whisper and stare, for in this small northern capital, writers were the true rock stars. Yet the elegance of Karl Johans Gate was only half the story. Kristiania was a city sliced in two by the Akerselva River. To the west lay the grand apartments of Frogner, heated by ceramic stoves and lit by new electric chandeliers. But cross the bridge to the east end and the world changed. This was the industrial heart, the landscape described by Knut Hamsun in his groundbreaking novel Hunger. Here, factory chimneys belched black smoke into the pale Nordic sky. The streets were narrower, the air thicker. Thousands of women toiled in match factories and textile mills, living in cramped tenements. It was a gritty, hard existence, and this stark contrast between the gilded West and the soot-stained East created a tension that vibrated through the city's streets. However, the early 1900s were not defined solely by struggle. They were defined by a magnificent, surging optimism. Technology was rushing in. The horse-drawn carriages were beginning to share the road with the blue trams, electric streetcars that sparked and screeched their way through the city, shrinking distances and connecting the neighborhoods. The telephone was becoming a common tool, weaving a web of wires across the skyline, connecting Kristiania to the wider world. And then came 1905. This was the year that defined the generation. For nearly a century, Norway had been in a union with Sweden, a junior partner in a political marriage it had outgrown. The tension had been building for years, and in the freezing, dark months of 1905, it reached a breaking point. The union was dissolved. For the first time in over 500 years, Norway was a fully independent sovereign state. Imagine the atmosphere in the streets that November. It wasn't a violent revolution, but a jubilant, emotional explosion of national identity. The city was draped in the red, white, and blue of the Norwegian flag. Crowds gathered at the quay to welcome a Danish prince who had agreed to become their own King Haakon VII. When he stepped onto the snowy pier, holding his little son, Crown Prince Olaf, the cheers from the people of Kristiania were said to be loud enough to shake the frost off the trees.
It was the birth of a modern nation, and Kristiania was its cradle. Culturally, the city was electric. While Ibsen was finishing his life's work, a younger, more turbulent force was capturing the city's anxiety on canvas. Edvard Munch was painting the colors of Kristiania, the sickly yellows of the gaslights, the deep, melancholic blues of the fjord, and the blood-red sunsets. His art shocked the conservative public, yet it perfectly captured the psychological intensity of a city moving too fast, a city suspended between the old rural traditions and the alienating rush of modern life.
But despite the modernization, the wild nature was never far away. In the winter, the city transformed. The tram lines were extended up towards the hills of Holmenkollen, and on Sundays, the carriages were packed with people carrying wooden skis. Skiing was not just a sport, it was a religion. Citizens of all classes would escape the smog of the city bowl to breathe the clean air of the forest. They would watch the daredevils launch themselves off the Holmenkollen ski jump, soaring like birds over the white canopy, a symbol of Norwegian endurance and courage. Life indoors was changing too. The Grand Café and Tostrupkelleren were filled with debates about women's rights. Norway was a pioneer, and by 1913, Norwegian women would be among the first in the world to gain the right to vote. You could hear the hum of these conversations in the cafes, amidst the clinking of glasses and the haze of cigar smoke. To look back at Kristiania in the 1900s is to see a city in adolescence. It was awkward, growing too fast, full of strange contrasts, aristocrats speaking Dano-Norwegian on the promenade, while workers spoke the dialect of the streets in the factories. It was a place where you could see a Viking ship excavated from the clay and displayed near a modern electric power station. It was a cold city, yes, the winters were long and the nights were dark, but if you were there, walking under the gas lamps on a snowy evening, hearing the rattle of the last tram and seeing the warm glow spilling from the windows of the Grand Hotel, you would feel the pulse of a city that knew it was on the verge of greatness. You would feel the spirit of Kristiania, the little city that was busy dreaming up the modern capital of Oslo.